let's go ahead and kick things off. Rosemary, would you like to begin the festivities?
Thank you, Rob, and welcome everyone to our open table, where we invite diverse perspectives and actions to end homelessness with respect and willingness to listen to each other. We're together today in a very uncertain time, deeply aware of the fragile nature of the governmental system we celebrate this 4th of July weekend and the rights it claims to guarantee. We're prepared for the patriotic speeches and the ubiquitous, even when banned, fireworks, and we worry. The circumstances and specific challenges are to our date and age, 2022, but the struggle is reflected in the voices of those who've experienced the fragility of America for a really long time. And so today I'm part of the speechifying, but I come with humility. I want to share two brief selections to center us on our work, one from poet Langston Hughes, who calls America to be America again, and the other by writer-activist Rebecca Solnit, who insists that uncertainty is a powerful basis for hope. So here's from Langston Hughes' really amazing 1936 poem, Let America Be America Again. If you haven't read that poem, I really recommend you read the whole thing, but here's a short excerpt. Oh, let my land be a land where liberty is crowned with no false patriotic wreath, but opportunity is real and life is free. Equality is in the air we breathe. And in parentheses, he says, there's never been equality for me, nor freedom in this homeland of the free. The free? Who said the free? Not me. Surely not me. The millions on relief today, the millions shot down when we strike, the millions who have nothing for our pay, for all the dreams we've dreamed, for all the songs we've sung, for all the hopes we've held and all the flags we've hung, the millions who have nothing for our pay except the dream that's almost dead today. Oh, let America be America again, the land that never has been yet. Oh, yes, I say it plain. America was never America to me. And yet I swear this oath, America will be. Out of the wreck and ruin of our gangster death, the rape and the rot of graft and stealth and lies, we, the people, must redeem the land, the mines, the plants, the rivers, the mountains, and the endless plain. All the stretch of these great green states and make America again. Different kind of MAGA, huh? Anyway, so Hughes has lots more verses, and the realities of life in America are presented there with the persistent hope that it could be and indeed must be different. And so what about that hope? Rebecca Solnit, in her 2004 book, Hope in the Dark, connects hope to uncertainty. And as we review our work to end homelessness, we definitely face a lot of uncertainty. As we'll hear today with many reports and reviews of current activities, things are really tough and increasingly uncertain when there are too few resources and people have nowhere to go. We'll take some time to meet each other and discuss what we hope the coalition can accomplish during the coming months. And how do we do this work? Solnit insists that hope locates itself in the premise that we don't know what will happen, and that in the spaciousness of uncertainty is room to act. When you recognize uncertainty, you recognize that you may be able to influence the outcome. You alone, or you in concert with a few dozen, or several million others. Hope is an embrace of the unknown and the unknowable, an alternative to the certainty of both optimists and pessimists. Optimists think it will be fine without our involvement. Pessimists take the opposite position. Both excuse themselves from acting. It's the belief that what we do matters even though how and when it may matter, who and what it may impact are not things we can know beforehand, and we may not in fact even know them afterwards. But they matter all the same, and history's full of people whose influence was most powerful after they were gone. And in another place, she offers a connection to the spirit of the 4th of July that I'll leave you with. Resistance, she says, is first of all a matter of principle and a way to live. To make yourself one small republic of unconquered spirit. You hope for results, but you don't depend on them. So welcome to the weekend and welcome everyone here. And as I believe Anna asked earlier, what about how we operate in this space in terms of the technology? And so we ask that people keep themselves muted when they're not speaking, so we eliminate background noise, that we use the raise hand function when we want to be recognized, And if you don't have the ability to do that, then you can sort of wave your hand and make us somebody will recognize you. And that we turn our video off if we're doing things that are just that could be distracting to others, taking calls or gesturing with our hands. And sometimes, as Rob noted earlier, if you don't have a very stable connection, turning off the video can allow you to be able to speak or listen to things well. We also use the chat in this space as a way to network with each other. So it's not a disrespectful activity at all. Ask questions, somebody will respond. Make a comment, somebody will respond. Announce something, people will be happy. So use that space that way. And our group norms are basically those of respecting one another, speaking one at a time, trying not to speak too often if you've spoken a number of times already, so we have a larger group and we can hear from everyone. And speaking out when you have something to say, because our voices do help us move on together. And at this point in our meeting, we always invite anyone who's here for the first time or coming back to join us after some time away to introduce themselves very briefly, just their name and what group they may be associated with. And then the further things can be discussed in the chat. So if anyone's new today, just let us know who you are. You can raise your hand and Rob will recognize you.
Hi, my name is Vicki Nichols. I am with PCAF, but I currently work for the Pierce County Max Clinic. High acuity and hard to reach clients who have fallen out of medical care.
Welcome, Vicki. Very good to have you here. Anna, you're on mute.
Yes, good morning, everybody. My name is Anna Baker, and I am with Inside Passages. Today is my completion of the first week to great things.
Well, welcome, Anna, and to some great work.
I think I recognize one of my cohorts, April, and I think one of my other cohorts that I recently met is at Timothy.
Yes.
So there's a couple faces I'm recognizing, so thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Zev.
Hi, I've been on before, but I just haven't been on for a while. So I was coming on these meetings to represent Serve the People. I'm still doing that, but now I'm on the CLR homeless outreach team. So just letting folks know about that.
Well, it's good to have you wherever you're doing your work, Zev. Welcome. So this is great. We'll be listening to everyone else as we have time to talk together. And so Rob, I'll give it back to you.
All right, and thank you, Rosemary. I look forward to your openings to these meetings, and you really delivered this morning, so thank you. All right, so let's shift to the regular weekly segment that we do about what's happening on the streets this week. I thought in particular, it's been a little bit of a roller coaster of a week when it comes to helping people who are currently unhoused. If you can think back to the beginning of the week and last weekend, we had hot weather, and there were a number of folks from the coalition who were helping try to respond to that over the weekend, in particular when the outreach teams were actually not available. So thought maybe if people want to reflect back on that effort a little bit, we can do that during this week on the streets. And then also any new developments that you've seen happening on the streets that would be good for the 50 so people in the room to know about. This would be a good time to share that. So I open the floor, use the raise hand function, or if you don't want to speak up verbally, you can also use the chat. We'll start with Paula.
Thanks, Rob. Good morning, everyone. So we received water on Thursday, I believe it was. Jen and her husband brought us cases from the EFN, the Emergency Food Network. We were able to distribute to FOB Hope, and then other people that came in that were trying to pick it up, not necessarily formal outreach. but just volunteers that wanted to take some out. We also were able to send out 2 teams, 2 staff along with 2 volunteers out of New Hope. And we went to the East Pierce County areas and some of the bigger encampments that we're aware of. And we're passing out water. What we did find was doing it early in the morning was not a good time to catch people, especially up in the area of Bonnie Lake. And this is something that, you know, is a learning experience every time we do something like this. The Bonnie Lake area at all the different stores that people hang out, it's not until the later afternoon that they start to show up there apparently. And I kind of knew we would be going a little bit early, but I was still hoping to find people in their vehicles and things of that nature. So they were able to find some people, but not the same amount that we found the last time that we went out. So, and we had a limited time that we could send people out. So that's why we did that. But all in all, being able to rely on this group and on our Safe Sites for All committee to make sure that we at least had some water to hand out and share with others that were in need of that was fantastic. And we feel really good about the people that we helped.
Thank you for that, Paula. And I think you said something during your conversation that I think, there we go. That wasn't during your conversation. That was a question about something else in the chat. Jeffrey, I see your hand up.
Last weekend, I was not in town. I actually got a chance to go camping for 5 days. It's quite nice up around Alder Lake. Highly recommend the campgrounds there with TPUs. Campgrounds, they're nice. Veterans Village, I was out there last night on a feeding program. They're doing well. They're all smiling. They're all happy they're there. I got word from Deputy Mayor Ushka that 35th and Pacific will be turned into a sanctioned campsite, low barrier, and that Tacoma Rescue Mission will be managing it, and they're working on their plans right now on how that's supposed to look. Drove through G Street this morning, and boy, there are a lot of people there. Holy smokes. And I did see about 6 individuals out wandering yesterday. Clearly homeless, on the move, no particular direction, just wandering. Good morning.
Thanks, Jeffrey. Teresa?
So Jeffrey is right. My block here, our block here has exploded. And the very sad news is that St. Leo's has made the decision. They found out there's another sweep going on 7th, and they've decided to encourage a sweep to enforce trespassing laws on the property that is theirs. And their current plan is to put up large boulders, which is like, of all the things that can be done to say no one is welcome here, the large boulders kind of hit the top. The fact that that could possibly be on our block here with the experiment that we really have tried as a community to make here is pretty heartbreaking to me. But as Rosemary said, uncertainty has some space for action. So I'd be delighted to hear ideas that anyone has. My push right now is to really encourage them to, instead of bringing boulders in, put some planter boxes in, because planter boxes have the potential for change, and they don't say go away with the same sort of ugliness and mean-spiritedness as boulders do. I think the people who are making decisions at St. Leo's right now are very afraid. This is a very different neighborhood than it was before the city began this rash of sweeps. I don't know who to be more frustrated with, the city for those decisions or St. Leo's for their current one. But just to let you know, if this happens, there will be a lot more people moving into the other spaces. It's just logical to be thinking ahead to that. I would love to be part of something creative. The people on this block would fill up the new safe camping site that's going to be set up on Pacific like that. And it's absolutely certain to me that they are not going to all be welcome there. So please be thinking about it. Please be in touch if you have any thoughts. I'm putting my email in the chat and I'm trying to keep hoping.
So Teresa, just for context, there's been a pretty stable and constant group of folks staying on G Street for how long now?
Some of the people have been here for decades living in cars. So those people I'm expecting will probably come back after this happens. And I don't even know if St. Leo's has the capacity to push a sweep. I think they might because it is private property. So a lot of the people in the tents have been here since the beginning of COVID. And we've done a pretty decent job of hammering out a sort of neighborhood out of the whole thing. So those people, I'm guessing, will be moved along with everyone else.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry that this is happening in your neighborhood. So, and it's been extraordinary to see how your neighborhood, prior to the new pressures, had been able to create a space that was accommodating for so many people. So sad to hear that. Yeah, Caleb.
I was gonna bring up the 35th and Pacific, but I think I will talk about that in my update.
Okay, that's great. So anyone else who would like to comment? Gerald, would you like to say something about the work that Brotherhood Rise did during the heat and anything you could add there?
Yeah, and I'll kind of help Caleb when he covers this shelter site as well here. But yeah, during the heat, we just did the typical thing we always do. We open up the shelter for Cooler Center. This time we were a distribution for water, but not many people came over. Ed, Teresa came and got water. We just want to make sure that it's put out in this forum so everyone knows that anytime there is whatever the inclement weather is, we'll be available in whatever we're asked to do. You know, we're open to have people come over and bring those things in, and we'll support. And I think Caleb will probably cover the shelter, I think.
Yeah, I presume so. So thank you for stepping up, Gerald, you and your staff. Anyone else who would like to offer information about what they're seeing on the streets this week? I knew you would speak up, Ed. Go ahead.
You did?
Yeah, somehow I just knew.
Yeah. So I had two trips into the 35th and Pacific encampment. Each one of those took 8 cases of water because they're about, well, I didn't count, but the information that I received from people that manage that, there are about 25 people there. Can't find them all the time. And so part of what I learned was to, and Jeffrey, what's the lady's name there? You remember?
Angie.
She would meet me at the back of the car and unload all the water into her cart, and she'd take it around within the encampment. So that was from me. It would be 16 cases of water, some on Saturday and then some on Monday. At the Mound site, there are 9 people there, and they got water. And then, interestingly enough, down by the Tacoma Dome, there are a lot of individual tents and a lot of activity going on there. But handed out the other cases, I got 11 cases the first time, and that was from the stability site. And I noticed that they were down to 1 pallet of water. And so on Monday, I called my friend Gerald over at Brotherhood Rise and went over and got a bunch of water there. So I'm glad it didn't go on another day, because I was starting to worry about our resources as far as cases of water to take to people. So, and I think it'd be great if the 35th and Pacific, if they were sanctioned and got some of the things that sanctioned encampments get, like water and porta potties or whatever they needed. They've been there for a long time. And with Jeffrey's support and help and various people, they've managed that camp really pretty well. So anyway, I would encourage us to be more prepared next time with more cases of water, because, and I know I mentioned this in a meeting earlier or last week, each of the Kirkland 16 ounce cases of water, they're 40 in a case. And if you take the 1 gallon of water per person that the CDC recommends, out of each case, you're only supporting 5 people for a day. So what I thought before, as far as what we need for water, applying the CDC's recommendation, we need a lot more. So I think that's all I have to say.
And thank you for your efforts, Ed. And I know last I looked, I didn't see Richard on the screen, but he was out handing out water over the weekend as well. Oh, and he is here now.
Yeah.
But so I wanted to publicly thank both you and Richard for that effort. I'm sure Caleb will fill in a little bit later in the report from the city. The presentation that was done to the city council at study session said that that there will be that they've been ordering a pallet of water per week to begin to stockpile for hot weather. So so it does sound like those preparations are going on, and I'll let Caleb address that later.
I would encourage that they order from multiple companies. So if a company fails, we're only hurt part way.
Yeah, and I think it sounded like that thinking is happening. Last year, the city was able to get water from Niagara during the extreme heat that we had. And that question was posed to Allison Griffith, the interim director for neighborhood and community services, during the study session. Allison said they have not been, as I understand it, getting the water from Niagara so far, but they do think that that avenue will be there if there's a need to get a surge of additional resources.
Well, and it was explained to me at Costco that they wouldn't sell me a pallet of water because they were low.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, and that's why I think they're stocking up ahead of whatever weather we have coming. Paula, I see you have your hand up, or is that from before?
No, I just wanted to add to that too. During this weekend time, and very recently at our food bank and at the Sumner Food Bank, they have not had water to hand out. So this water issue is really critical. We got to start planning ahead, because even the food banks were unable to give it to us. If it wasn't for Jan and her husband working with the EFN, we would not have had the water delivered. So this is critical. Just wanted to mention that.
Thank you for that. Yeah, and I understood that even individual stores, grocery stores, were limiting water purchases during the heat as well. Sally?
So the other missing piece in this is the individual people sort of out and about with no particular place to go or nowhere open for them to go. So I went out on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday just with cold, partially frozen water bottles to give out to people in the Hilltop who were just out and about. And I mean, there's no way for them to access water otherwise on the weekend. On Monday, things picked up a little bit, and I didn't see as many people, but on Saturday and Sunday, both around 3:30 and then around 6:30. And Paula, I have the same experience, and it's two different sets of people at those two times. There were people out, and they all were welcoming of receiving water, helped me take it to other people. They were great. It was really kind of an amazing experience visiting with folks in that informal connection on the weekend. So we need to give some thought to a super micro, a nano response at that level, because individual people who are struggling because they can't get water. And I bought mine at Fred Meyer. I mean, I can't carry that much water, so I didn't have a huge amount, but just driving around the Hilltop, talking to people and handing it out, it was really interesting. But we need to figure out a way to do that in a more semi-organized but flexible way.
Yeah, appreciate that, Sally. Jan, you had something to add?
I was going to add this at the Safe Sites for All, but we got folks here now. EFN has since reached out to us. We are in negotiations with EFN, Emergency Food Network. For those that don't know, it's the main distribution center of food for food banks. We have over 80 food banks and meal sites in the county. And EFN is the major distribution center for those food banks. We are in negotiation for, instead of us as volunteers going to EFN and picking up a pallet, which is cumbersome, we are talking about breaking out the pallet, at which point we as a committee, the Emergency Distribution Network, part of our committee, will be asking everybody here in Zoom if who would be a good distribution site for several cases of water. So I know Joe Purva from Lehigh, the different churches, the different agencies have talked about taking cases of water. Gerald can take a lot of water, but outside of the Hilltop area, we'll be asking other places who can take just cases of water. So more to follow on that plan. It's going to be a regular, perhaps bi-weekly plan where we pick up broken out pallets of water and deliver X number of cases. So be on the lookout, or think about volunteering to be a site for that.
Thank you, Jan, and thank you for the work you and your husband have done to get things out to people during the extreme weather as well. And Jay, you want to wrap up this section of the meeting for us?
Sure. An interesting thing, a lot of people were on buses. A lot of the buses are air conditioned, but the further that we get into summer, the more those buses will break down and the less air conditioning we'll have, and the more people will need more water because of it as we get through the season. I talked to 4 or 5 different people. I gave a couple of people spray bottles, and that seemed to really help the people, at least out here, stay cool, because they were just spraying each other down and keeping each other's temperatures down. So maybe that's something to consider, is if you're going to go to a site and drop off water, maybe a couple spray bottles, because that can take down your temperature by 10 degrees in a few minutes. So that might really help. But that was predominantly the thing that I noticed is as long as there's bus service that has an air conditioner, if they can, they will write it. So if we can get some at-risk people a bus pass for the day, they can hop between buses and stay cool.
Thank you for that, Jay. Great perspective. And Patricia, you had something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I didn't want to take up too much part of the meeting, but it's not just about water bottles, it's providing like the wet towels that you put around your neck. It's about, there's a lot of people that like, if you think about all the plastic, there's water bottles only last so long in the heat, like they taste like plastic. What about like looking at things differently where there's water sources that people can come fill up, and then you can have a touch point that maybe they can get other services. Thank you for letting me share.
Yeah, and I appreciate you bringing that up. I saw Nick in the chat asking about all of the trash from bottled water, and it is something that we've talked about at the Safe Sites for All meetings, as well as I think we had some conversation about it at the steering committee. So yeah, there has been talk about alternative ways to get water out rather than using water bottles and refilling people's water, and or having distribution points where people can come get water. So that planning is ongoing. The water bottle distribution, though, the plastic bottles is kind of the interim solution. We're hoping to come up with something more long-term. So I want to thank everybody. And again, there's lots of other folks I know who handed out water or bought water for distribution by those who could go out. So I really appreciate the work of everybody in this coalition to make people a little bit more comfortable and a little bit safer when we have high temperatures. And hopefully Caleb can give us an update. I know one of the challenges that the coalition is pushing the local governments to come to a agreed set of thresholds for when governments will respond to extreme weather. The city of Tacoma did have a slide in their presentation on Tuesday at the study session about where they're at in terms of thresholds, but we're still waiting to hear from Pierce County Human Services what their thresholds will be. The latest that we heard is probably August before we'll hear what they're proposing. So appreciate that. And I think we should move on to the next item in our agenda. And that is an update or a community spotlight update from Verna Lilly from the Medical Reserve Corps to talk about what the Street Outreach Clinic does. So Verna?
Thank you, Rob. Have you enabled screen sharing for me?
I can do that here, just a minute.
Okay.
All right, you should have that ability now.
Okay, I don't see my PowerPoint though. Let me try again. I was having some computer issues this morning. Well, gee, guys, I'm going to have to talk through it. I'm sorry. I can't even share you the pictures.
So
Okay.
I have the pictures if you want me to share them.
Okay, go ahead and put up the pictures then.
Okay.
The one with Marcus and Jan and me standing in front of the trailer first. I'm having computer issues this morning. I hope it's just a temporary glitch.
All right, so you can go ahead and speak and I'll work on doing that. I know I queued it up here somewhere.
Okay. All right. So the Medical Reserve Corps, MRC, started an outreach project back in March. That was a 4-week visit to the homeless encampment on 7th and Tacoma Avenue. This is not the particular encampment, but this is just a picture, and we'll talk about that in a second. So we went there for 4 weeks. The reason we were going out was because there was a rise in STDs, and specifically syphilis and babies being born with syphilis. And so the public health outreach was to help serve a vulnerable population with information and by providing also a whole bunch of free condoms. The project timeline was March 9 through May 3rd. We partnered with the Tacoma Pierce County Health Department Community Health Workers, those are CHWs. So the picture that you're looking at right now is Marcus, who is a tremendous ally. And we have another one, Abraham Acosta, was also a tremendous ally. They're both community health workers. These are some of Jan and my favorite people. They're very gung-ho, will go out and have a lot of street smarts and are real good folks to work with. So we worked with them during the project and then have continued since then. Some of the services we provided were things like fresh fruit and snack protein bars. We also handed out a whole bunch of garbage bags, a whole bunch of condoms, wound care kits. Richard Bursett had a lot to do with helping with that. Resource flyers. So we would, hand out resource and information to folks to let them know where they could go for help. Jan is constantly saying, where do you go if you need to go see a doctor? Who do you go see? Show me which one you go to make sure that people know where they can go for medical help. So that's been real good. During that project, so this was 4 weeks, at that one site, we visited a total of 49 people, some of them, probably 5 or 6 of them more than once, and began to be recognized by them. And when they saw us, they would walk out to us and greet us. And that was something that I liked a lot. Okay, go ahead don't switch pictures yet. So the RV that we're standing in front of us illustrates one of the issues that we've seen at the encampments, and I'm sure others have too. That white paint bucket that's down at the bottom of that RV was catching raw sewage out of the RV. And so the needs that they have at the encampments, I don't have to tell anybody, are significant, but we tried to work with the city to get that particular one resolved and help for them. Rob, do you want to switch to that other picture? This is Marcus in action. He'll walk right up to a tent and call out, and it's been a delight to work with him. The woman in the pink jacket in front of him is sitting in a wheelchair. We've consistently seen 1 to 4 wheelchairs at the sites that we visited. Some of the sites have been the 7th and Tacoma Avenue, 15th and G. We went to 11th and L, I think once or twice, and then we started to go to 35th and Pacific. Usually we see two encampments a day. And since we started this in April, we've only missed 1 week of going out. We've gone out every week except one. Jan, would you like to finish us off with talking about the other partners we're working with Joanne Iverson?
Sure. The only reason why this particular project works is because of partnerships. So we've got Teresa Power-Drudas, who actually lives in the 15th and G site. She is an ambassador for us, and she goes with us to sort of pave the way. We had First United Methodist folks helping us at 7th and Tacoma Avenue. But another partnership that has happened besides the one that we developed with the Community Health Worker Collaborative is with Joanne Iverson. She's another nurse with MRC. She and I have been working with Laureen Tomich, who was a speaker here at our Friday Zoom meeting. Elevate Health has been charged with trying to come up with a model that works here in Tacoma and Pierce County for the medically fragile who are living on the streets. We've all seen, like Verna was saying, folks in wheelchairs in encampments, folks with walkers, folks with all kinds of devices in the streets. So not only is poverty sending people to the streets, these are people that are the poorest and the sickest of all of us. So Joanne has started a data collection project using, and Leanne Blanks is here. She's another nurse that's helping us get data by doing research. We're doing interviews with folks to find out how it is that they came to be in this position. And hopefully that data will be enough of a push upward to get a lot of momentum around building a suitable site for folks who are so fragile that we should actually think about starting hospice You know, it is that bad. So lots of partnerships. Let us know, let Verna and I know if you want us to include your site that you visit, and we'll put our contact information in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. And Patricia, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, I've been working on this for a while. I hope you can hear me.
We can.
There is a very detailed way that people go into hospice. And the reason that they're on street is that they don't qualify for hospice. And what can be done is to find a way to produce sites for medical recuperation, medical restoration, medical support. And those are the things to be like hit on versus like going into a medical system that is highly regulated so that people can get the resources and their health needs kind of met. Thank you for letting me share.
Yeah, thank you for your background and knowledge, Patricia, and sharing with us. All right, any questions for Jan and Verna? And I see that they've both dropped their contact information into the chat. So thank you for that. And let's shift over. We thought we would do, so last week at this time, Project Homeless Connect was happening in Fife. And we asked Michael Yoder if he'd be interested in giving us kind of just a quick summary of how the event went, how many folks were contacted, and that sort of thing. So Michael?
Great. Thanks, Rob, for the opportunity. Appreciate everyone showing up today at the beginning of a holiday weekend. This is a committed group of folks, and we saw that last Friday, a week ago today, on the 24th, when our Associated Ministries Project Homeless Connect event partnered for the first time with Work Sources Collaboration for a Cause and also the City of Fife. So this was kind of a new three-way collaboration for us, and it resulted in an awesome resource fair that was hosted at the City of Fife's Community Center. And we had about 50 vendors on site providing essential resources, and there were about 210 attendees total. It was such an open area. It was a little hard to control exactly who was coming and going, but that's our best guess estimate of the number of different people who attended. And the resources that were there were all kinds of benefit access resources, connections to Social Security, coordinated entry, of course, employment services. There was medical care, veteran services, pet care services. Related to the services, we had a record number of housing screenings, haircuts, and dental patients. So that was cool. The Medical Reserve Corps that you just heard from was there, and they were very excited to be able to administer 23 vaccinations, which these days is a lot. There are some vaccination clinics where nobody is showing up anymore. So that was encouraging. The Collaboration for a Cause data with all of the folks, they showed that there were 432 referrals sent to partnering agencies. So if you think about it, that's amongst the 210 people who attended, they were connected on average to 2 different resources that can provide them with some life-changing services. So 432 referrals, and they will be following up with those agencies to see how those referrals are going and tracking that. And just, I want to put in a plug, because one of the main things that we like about Homeless Connect is the opportunity for the community to come and just to be involved. And we had 59 volunteers who showed up, and they contributed 309 volunteer hours supporting the event in a variety of ways. And for people who are not full-time in this work, neighbors, friends, others, like, what is going on, with outreach, to our unhoused neighbors, I would ask you to encourage them to volunteer to come to a Homeless Connect event. It's a great way to encourage people just to wade into the shallow end of the pool and come taste and see what it's like to work with this population. And we always have excellent experiences for the folks who come out and serve in this way. And we had volunteers actually running shuttle buses too. So that was one of the unique things. We ran a fleet of vans that brought people in from all over East Pierce County and Tacoma. And we had this event in Fife because we wanted to focus this. We move it around the county. We do 3 per year. We wanted to focus on the cities of Fife, Milton, and Edgewood, and the Port of Tacoma because of the high number of people in encampments and unsheltered individuals in those areas. And we focused outreach throughout that area and along the Puyallup River and the hotels and motels along Pacific Highway. So that was kind of a new outreach strategy for us. And then finally, one of the highlights, I think one of the things that gets folks to come is our giveaway area, and it was very robust this time, and that's always encouraging, just to put a tangible, practical, something in someone's hand. So every client who came got a big 16 by 16 reusable nylon bag with handles, and they could go shopping, quote unquote, to pick up exactly things that they specifically needed. And we had socks, underwear, bras, hygiene kits, ointments, toilet paper, reusable water bottles, which is nice, so we don't have to pass out so many water bottles on hot days that end up in the landfill. We had masks and healthy snacks and disinfectant sprays and a lot more. And finally, it's always encouraging when the community cares about this in a wider way. We had both Como 4 and King 5 News send reporters to cover it, and it was very encouraging to see Joel Moreno from Como come and say something positive about homelessness on that channel for a change. So that was I thought that was a victory as well. Any questions? Happy to ask, but that's the overview that I have for you today, and appreciate the support of this group in so many ways. We're gonna get our act together here soon. As soon as the dust settles from this one, we'll hopefully have another event, probably in Central Tacoma in October. I'll provide news when we have a date and location.
Well, thank you for your work and your staff at Associated Ministries to wrangle everybody together to make a difference. Really appreciate it. Any questions for Michael? All right, so thank you for that update. So in the interest of doing another quick update, we also thought it would be good to ask Lori Davenport from Tacoma Pro Bono to kind of give us a little bit of context of what you're seeing, Lori, what your organization is seeing in terms of evictions in the community, because I think there's been, well, and you raised this issue at the steering committee, there's been some conversation that there's a tsunami underway, and you wanted to kind of provide context for us.
Great, thanks, Rob. I really appreciate the chance to talk about this a little bit, because it's been 6 months since the moratorium ended, and so I think people are, for a long time we were all thinking, oh man, the tsunami is coming. It's coming, and each time they extended the moratorium, that was putting off the tsunami. So what's the deal with the tsunami? Is it happening or not? So I wanted to give you some numbers from our Housing Justice Project, because we are running and staffing the Right to Counsel program in Pierce County, which means that we are providing defense in court for anybody who's facing an eviction who's eligible. So we know these numbers. And I think the fact that's been out there, which is true, is that Pierce County has had the highest number of evictions in the state, at least January through March, and that's scaring people. The numbers have been, we had 100, and I've got them right here, 139 in January, 115 in February, 160 in March, 112 in April, and 161 in May. And we were the highest again, January through March. In April and May, King County had the most, but only by about 3 or 4 evictions. So we're basically neck and neck with King County through May, which is what we have. But overall, in our county and throughout the state, eviction numbers really haven't rebounded to the levels where they were pre-pandemic, let alone being a tsunami. It's just not. The average eviction levels from 2015 to 2019, before the moratorium, Pierce County averaged in the ballpark of 260 monthly eviction filings. And our current volume is a little over 60% of that historical average. What we don't know is if the new changes to the law in 2021 specifically just cause evictions will keep the levels low. We're hoping. We'll see what happens. We don't know yet. There may be a big impact when rental assistance eventually goes away. That's going to be September, October. When it's fully depleted, we may be just marching back up to where we were historically. Or we might see the tsunami, we don't know. I think another thing that's kind of contributing to the way people are feeling about people losing housing is that there are people self-evicting because they're receiving 14-day notices and they're just thinking, well, I got 2 weeks to be out, I'm leaving. Please don't do that. Please contact us if that happens. You need to contact the Eviction Resolution Pilot Program. It would take a long time to evict you, even if you do owe rent, even if rental assistance isn't there. There's still a process and it's fairly lengthy, so don't leave. Rents are going up and people on fixed incomes, on disability, people who just simply can't afford the new rent are leaving because they have to leave. It's not really self-eviction, it's just being displaced. And we're all seeing that. There's a lot of housing insecurity. So yes, evictions are down, but that doesn't mean that we're not still seeing a lot of people suffering housing instability. So that's what I know. Any questions?
One I had for you, Lori, do you have a sense of folks who are getting evicted? How many are then slipping into homelessness?
I don't know. I don't have any numbers to reflect that. I think it's potentially significant because it's taken a toll on our attorneys because, you know, we can't keep everybody housed just by providing eviction defense. So people are being evicted. People, even if they can stay, even if we can work out a settlement, you know, keep the eviction off their record, whatever, that doesn't mean that they have a place to go. So, so it's tough. We need more resources. We need to be working together the best we possibly can to make sure people don't become homeless in that situation.
And then I know you mentioned the end of the COVID related rental assistance. I believe there's state rental assistance kicking in as well that'll continue.
There is, yeah. And the county is setting up a new plan, which I understand will probably be operational by January or something like that. It's nowhere near as huge because it's just not as much money, but it's a little bit better regulated and hopefully still effective. So that is in the works. It's going to happen.
Great. Well, thank you for providing that context. Patricia, I see you have your hand up. And you're muted right now, Patricia.
I was just going to say that there are silent people that are sort of like self-evicting or going into their cars. They're not really letting people know. And there's only so long that you can maintain living in a car without other resources. I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Absolutely. We just, these people are unseen. We don't have a sense, but yeah.
All right. So I'm looking at the time and we were going to have a breakout conversation to lead us up to the 10 o'clock hour, but we're 5 minutes away from 10 o'clock right now. So, or 4 minutes. So why don't we, I'll shuffle our agenda a little bit and we'll talk about our breakout topic after the government updates. So if that works for you, Caleb, would you like to give us an update from the city of Tacoma?
Rob, can you just give me 1 second?
Yeah, no problem at all.
I'll be ready.
Yeah, no problem. Jeff, would you like to give us an update from Pierce County Human Services?
Sure. We recently were notified by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development at a federal level that the Biden administration is providing $322 million for continuums of care across the country. This is supplemental funding with a targeted focus of addressing the unsheltered and rural homelessness crisis across the country. So the dollars are targeted to rural communities as well as non-rural communities addressing unsheltered homelessness. Pierce County, when we dug into the funding opportunity, is eligible to apply for just over $5 million or up to $5.1 million of this $322 million pot of money. We are not considered an urban, a rural county. We're considered more of a metro urban county due to the size of our county and the population of the urban area. So we don't qualify for any of the rural funding, even though we know we have rural parts of our county. We'll be planning to submit an application, so we'll be working closely as the COC to identify new projects. We can't fund existing projects. They all have to be new projects to address the unsheltered homeless crisis we have here in Pierce County. Applications are due in October, I believe October 20th, and funding will start flowing into projects come middle of 2023. So that's something big we're working on. It's separate from our ongoing Continuum of Care funding opportunity that HUD will be releasing soon as well. So we'll have two funding processes going on at the same time to try to pull in some of these dollars from the supplemental monies, as well as continue to receive our ongoing Continuum of Care funding we get from the federal government. So that's exciting. We are also releasing very soon a NOFA to provide funding for severe weather, shelter and supplies distribution. There's $20,000 available for an 11-month period from August through June of next year, with the intent of funding it from July to June annually every year to address the needs of unsheltered homeless during what we call inclement weather events. There is a difference, and we'll maybe educate people later to the difference of inclement weather and severe weather. And the inclement weather is when Pierce County Human Services will get involved and engaged with inclement weather crisis. A severe weather crisis is where we will be engaged with our Department of Emergency Management. It's more serious, it's for longer periods of time, and additional resources and items should be made available through our Department of Emergency Management for those longer periods or more severe crisis compared to inclement weather, where with inclement, basically we would work to distribute water, other items that may be needed during more of a cold weather event, like, sleeping bags, socks, gloves, hats, whatever it may be. So that's coming out very soon, and we hope that agencies will apply. We're looking for one agency to take the lead on that work. And so, yeah, hopefully someone will apply to assist the county in addressing inclement weather crisis when we experience them here in Pierce County. That's all I have.
Jeff. And do you have a moment for a question?
Sure, I expected questions. And
So
honestly, I expected Jan to be the first one.
Yeah, well, she's living up to the billing.
Awesome.
Jeff, the NOFA that you're offering, does that include a communication systems? Would the agency be involved in the communication of the distribution plan in action?
They'll be engaged with that process, but we're still working on a policy and procedure for that process. It's still actively being developed. We're working very closely with City of Tacoma, Department of Emergency Management, as well as Neighborhood and Community Services. We're working with Puyallup Department of Emergency Management, Lakewood Department of Emergency Management. And if you don't know the Lakewood Department of Emergency Management and the Puyallup is the lead entity for all of Eastern Pierce County. So it's all the small towns and cities that kind of coordinate under that Puyallup DEM. And Lakewood is the DEM that kind of coordinates all the western part of the county that's not Tacoma itself as part of that DEM network. So we're working with all of those Department of Emergency Managements, trying to gain consensus of temperatures or severity of weather. So we're all consistent, because right now we're all at different levels. So the process will include that agency, but Pierce County will be heavily involved in that process, and will, as part of our policy, we will be holding daily briefings of all the partners that are involved, as we've done in the past. At 3 o'clock, we'll be changing the time. 3 o'clock's not good, but that agency will be involved, but Pierce County will still take the lead, Human Services will, with that notification, coordination amongst all the partners and providers.
Great, I see clapping, so that's a good sign. And thank you for the planning on this, because as we noticed from this last weekend, one of the challenges in the volunteer-led effort to get water and things to people is just that coordination. And you know, we took some small steps to try to address that over the last weekend, but it'll be good to have something that's actually a system.
Coming soon.
All right. Any other questions for Jeff before we move back to the City of Tacoma update? Okay. So Caleb, you ready to talk about City of Tacoma updates?
I sure am. Thanks, Rob. I appreciate
Yeah.
it. Hello, everyone. I first want to just shout out the coalition for the water distribution, and Jan and Ed and Richard and all of the work that you all did on distributing water. As we shared in the study session, we did 5 pallets over those 3 days, and getting to those for those people who are vulnerable. And so that's super exciting. In terms of long-term plans for water distribution, our goal is to have 30 pallets on hand. And something that Ed mentioned of ordering through different companies is something that we are doing. Costco will let you order a pallet per order. So we are actually ramping that up, not per week, but actually per day. But that is a 7 to 10 day delivery window. And often when they do come, they don't come with a power gate. So it's up to the Catholic Community Services and up to the stability site to actually unload that by hand, because most delivery drivers won't. So usually it's coordinating and making sure that when they do come with a power gate. We're also doing staples as well, and we're trying to order, we can order actually up to 10 pallets at a time with them. They were able to deliver to each shelter site that asked for water, and we can do that up to 2 days. So we can make sure we get a pallet to each shelter site, to Lighthouse, to Brotherhood Rise, or any of the other providers that we partner with. So we're ramping up right now with that. Ed, oh, I'm sorry, Rob, go ahead. What was your question?
Oh, I was a little bit confused at the amount of water that the report said went out over the weekend.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if some of that was just because it was delivered to different distribution sites. Oh, okay.
So-
Teresa did pick up water too, but
Okay, yeah, so the report that I got, the sign out sheet equaled about 5 pallets.
wow.
But how much shelters, I don't have that report. So how much Lighthouse gave out, or any of the shelter sites, I don't have those numbers. So those would be not including, so it's probably a little bit over 5 pallets, but that's how many got signed out from the stability site.
Got it.
Yeah. So we could probably expect that. So once we get up to what we feel comfortable in terms of response, it's much easier to resupply than to ask for water. Really what comes down to the hardest part is the distribution part. And it's not people willing to be able to deliver it us, it's willing to coordinate, and getting that off of the truck is usually the coordination part. So that just takes a little bit more work in terms of it, but we have probably roughly at this point about 15 or so, probably a little bit more of pallets of water that are supposed to be hitting that stability site in the next week or so. So that is the plan moving forward. As in terms of distribution, or people that can come and pick up with the coalition, it is Catholic Community Services is a weekly 20 is every day, so you can come and pick it up at any point between 9 and 4, and I believe 10 and 4, excuse me. Please clarify, Jan, did we say 9 and 4?
Okay, I'm unmuted. I think we said between 9 and 4, but I'm hearing that the sign up sheet, is the city not concerned about who takes out water? Because it seems like it's been really casual on the sign out sheet. Do we want data on who is picking it up and for generally what area and the contact, or do we not care? This is more of a city question, but I think we're curious as a coalition who is picking up water and what area they are taking it to and the contact.
And we could probably help supply them an actual form. It looks like it was a lot of probably church/coalition folks. Of course, I saw Richard, I saw Ed's name, I saw Brotherhood Rise also have to pick it up, some up there from as well. And we're just gonna, in the future, just send a pallet directly to them. So I recognize some of the names in terms of locations. But yeah, we can add that in just to coordinate a little bit better in terms of who's actually coming to pick it up.
That helps us as a distribution system, so that in the next heat dome, let's say, we can actually activate those folks, as opposed to putting out a widespread and having the strangers show up. We can activate those who already have shown a commitment and have an association with the coalition. Not that we want to be exclusive, but at least we can activate those that we know are already doing the work. So I would appreciate a sign out sheet with contact information. And, we've been making it very clear, anything that the city provided stays in the city. And like when I saw Food Not Bombs working the streets, he said he went down and he got several cases, but he wasn't asked to sign anything. So do we as a coalition, don't we want to, I want to know that if okay, yes, I'm seeing heads nod, yes. So can we please ask that the city perhaps ask CCS staff to have a sign out sheet with the person, their contact information, how much they picked up, and perhaps a general area where they might be hitting, although that's really squishy. We get that. Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. So we would, right now I have names and how many cases that they took for sure, if I can remember correctly, that sign out sheet. But we can also just input location of general where they're going to be at on top of contact information. That contact information might also be on there. But that sign up sheet is ready to go already. And as I said, lots of people already did it. So yeah, and then moving forward with shelters. So Brotherhood Rise, Gerald, thank you for reminding me here. Right across the center, we are doing a micro shelter site there. We are pretty much done with the infrastructure. It looks like it might be even closed up today. And Gerald's team is actually starting to build the sheds. And so we are hoping that we're going to be open here in July and ready to go. And that capacity is going to be at 35 individuals at any given time. 35th and Pacific, as Jeffrey mentioned, it is going to be considered what you guys considered a low barrier, but in a sense, the restrictions on people entering will be low. And what that means is that people will have an opportunity and access that site, regardless of the typical barriers I think that we run into with other shelters. That will be a mitigation site as well. And we will have tents on hand for individuals that need them, or they can actually bring their own tents if they would like. They will be provided basically what is a raised plot pallet up above that raises them from the ground, and then they can use the shelter that whatever best suits them to be able to have that opportunity. And then that will be managed by Tacoma Rescue Mission. They will have showers and toilets. They will have access to food and laundry. The laundry is a little bit, it takes a little bit more time to go through permitting. And so that will eventually be coming. And eventually that site will transition to micro shelter and also a mitigation site as it expands, but it will serve 50 individuals at this point. So right now what we're going to be doing is a lot more robust community engagement and reaching out to the community to let them know. And we will have a community meeting for that and inviting everybody to come that wants to learn more about that site.
Great. Caleb, I see a number of folks have some questions. So
absolutely, please.
Teresa had her hand up the longest. Thanks for your patience. And then we'll get through Ed and Patricia as well.
This is great. Thank you, Caleb, for all of the information. I found it really easy to get additional water from the Rise Center. And if you have a chance to go up there and see the platforms and the beautiful fencing and the way that the place is it just looks like it's waiting for good things to happen. And we hope the electricity issue gets solved. So it's quite beautiful. But I also wanted, back to the water bit, I did find it easy to get water from the stability site, and they did take my name and how much water I took, I believe. But I think rather than saying it would be nice to have information about where the water is taken, I think that's pretty critical. If we are going to build out from this, this is one of the sources of information we can have about where is it going, and so that we don't, the next person who comes doesn't say, I have to bring it to that same place. So I'd appreciate that. But I also have a question about sometimes the water, if we're buying bunches of pallets of it, can be sitting out in the open in the sunshine. And I don't know if anyone's tracking what the effects of water stored without any shade might be, and if there are any options for another place to store it than out in the sunshine.
Thanks, Teresa. I appreciate that. Yeah, power is priority for 35th and Pacific, and actually, we are pretty close to actually having power right at the site right now, and so that is number one, as we've learned, to make sure that is established from learning from 82nd and Pacific. So thank you, Teresa. I appreciate that. In terms of water distribution, I think as I understand what Catholic Community Services do is they only bring out a pallet out to that gated area at a time and not all of the water. And it's really just for those that time to be able to come in. So we store it actually in that Kavanaugh building during the time. And then when inclement weather happens, it comes out. So it's easier access for everybody, if that clarifies anything.
And Ed, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. One, Caleb, can you let the coalition know when there's a neighborhood meeting? We might have a couple of people that want to show up and support support you on that. Secondly, if you're going to have 30 pallets of water, would it be possible to have those delivered to various sites around the city? For example, a church or another organization that can safely warehouse that water and then be open when it needs to be distributed. And of course, you'd have sign out sheets at each location. But if we had 2 or 3 or 4 other locations, it would really help. So I'm wondering if the city would be open for that.
Thanks, Ed. Absolutely. I mean, that to me seems like it's breaking down more barriers for people to get easier access to water, especially for those volunteers. So I would definitely be interested in having those conversations. The only thing that I think always we run into is because when we buy it from the city and it does not get sent to a city address, there's a lot of issues with that we've run up against. But not saying that there's not possible solutions. So I would love to have that conversation. Thanks, Ed.
Thank you.
And we got 2 more questions for you, Caleb. Patricia and then Jeffrey.
It's not a question. It's just I needed to vent at some point that, like, you're in the United States of America, and as any human being on the face of the earth, we need water. and the limited water and the distribution, and you get one water bottle when you go somewhere or 2 water bottles, you know, what goes in also comes out. So hygiene and hydration needs to be a bigger conversation than just water bottles. It needs to be access to watering holes. We are surrounded by water. We are lucky in our region, yet we are talking about like that somebody can't go get water freely. It just, it breaks me. And that's all I got to say about that. But it's the truth. And this is also one of the reasons that some of these health conditions are happening, which keeps people on the street. So thank you for letting me just.
Yeah, thank you for that, Patricia. And Jeffrey, you want to wrap up this section?
Absolutely. Hello, Caleb. How much conversation has taken place with the campers at 35th and Pacific?
That's a great question, Jeffrey, and that's something that I think that we'll be encouraging TRM and even in probably coordination with the HEAL team. And I would also invite you, I think that since you've had such a great relationship with them, to try to have that conversation with them about what they need and what would be successful for them, because I'm thinking in terms of strategically that location will be priority in terms of inviting those folks into that camp. So they don't have to go inside those cedar fences, but they will be, I wouldn't say prioritized, but heavily encouraged. So having that conversation, Jeffrey, should be priority on all of our lists to have that. Could you help with connecting?
Yes, I'll connect with Davina. I'll send out an email to Davina today and let her know that I'm available to help her out with that.
I'm not sure who Davina is.
She's with TRM.
Okay, all right. Luis is
Louise?
is probably gonna, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely.
All right, thank you.
And I will say one more thing. Sorry, Rob. Last thing is that we are, now that I've have an opportunity to really dive deep into the strategy after learning a lot of what's been happening over the time, and this document that we gave an update that we will have ready. I will be reaching out to the coalition, and maybe Rob, I can coordinate with you on some good times to have conversations about what our strategy looks like right now and kind of what we want to put into a final form. What are the measurements we want to use, and how do we know what success looks like? So please be on the lookout for that if you would like to join me for that conversation. I'm sure many of you would like to, in terms of helping with finding solutions and addressing homelessness. And I think what Pierce County has mentioned is reaching to functional zero.
Thank you, Caleb. And appreciate your taking so many questions today. Ed, you have your hand up again? Oh, you're muted right now. And I didn't do it to you.
Sorry. Jeff Rogers, I have a question for you that just occurred to me. You have a NOFA that is coming out for $20,000 for materials, emergency materials. Within that contract of the NOFA, is there flexibility to expand that limit of $20,000 with the county?
There could be. That would be contingent upon the need. We're committed to addressing inclement weather crisis, and so it would depend on the volume of crisis that we experience within the contract period.
Okay, great, thank you.
And yeah.
Good, thanks, Jeff. So I don't see Valerie on our call, but I do know Jenny is here from the Tacoma Pierce County Health Department. Jenny, what do you have to share with us this week?
Hey, everybody. Good morning. I'm really excited to hear about the 35th and Pacific, or 34th and Pacific. That's very cool, especially because I got the opportunity a few weeks ago to go out with Jan and with Marcus from our team and others. And we were chatting about, wow, how great it would be to use this land and be able to support people here. And so that was news to me this morning, and it's great. It's great to hear. The main thing I wanted to share today, and I just want to preface everything I say by saying that I will send out an email with detailed information. So you don't have to track every word that I'm saying right now, is that our isolation and quarantine system is changing again. As of today, we are going to only 5 days a week of coverage. And so basically during business hours, and that is not super ideal for the shelter system, but that is where we are at right now due to capacity and funding and things like that. So like I said, I'll send out an email with more detailed information. I'm also working on, I'm letting shelters know this in, anytime there's an update, I let them know right away. I'm also working on getting that information in like a really easy to access 1 to 2 page document that I can share out so that it's not lost in the shuffle, so that shelters, outreach teams, and others will be able to have that information. I'm hoping to have that by next week. But I have been sharing with shelters, talking with them about their contingency plans, should they need, or should they, have someone who they think needs a safe place to isolate or quarantine in those off hours. And folks are aware of, infection control and keeping folks safe. And I'm just continuing to work with folks around that. So that is the big update from me. And you will see more in email later. There's monkeypox out there. I'm hearing that we're really concerned, and then I'm hearing that, we're not quite concerned to the level of emergency, though King County has all the cases. And so we're keeping an eye on what King County is doing up there with their emergency response, if they initiate that. I'll send information. I've sent this before, but I'll send more information about what to look for monkeypox, and what you do if you know somebody, have a suspected case, et cetera. Rather than go into details verbally, I think it's better if I just share that in email so you have something to refer to. So I'll send some links. We're going to restart some shelter-based COVID vaccine clinics with a new vaccine contractor that we have. And that's really it from me today. Any questions, comments, feedback?
You've awed us, and so we are silent.
I just overload you with information, and everyone's just so confused they can't think of a question to ask.
That or our coffee is worn off.
Oh, well, I'm always here, always advocating for you all. I'm happy to be part of your group, and just appreciate all of you, and reach out anytime.
Thanks for being here, Jenny.
Thank you.
And one quick shout out to see if anybody from Pierce County Department of Emergency Management is here. I don't believe so, but moment of awkward silence. All right. So I realize I skipped over something in the agenda, and but before I get to that, I see Patricia has her hand up.
This was for OEM. On some of the meetings that we had, we were also developing thresholds. So part of emergency management would also be for weather conditions and so forth. But I'll talk to Ivan about that to see what came up. All right, thank you.
Yeah, and we did, I mean, I guess one of the things that we did learn last week as we were talking to Delmar from the county was that at least the current approach until Human Services comes back with its plan next month, I believe, is that they were relying on the Department of Emergency Management threshold when it came to hot weather, which meant a forecast that showed at least 3 days of temperatures at 90 degrees or above being in the forecast, being the trigger for when DEM would get involved with inclement weather / severe weather, whatever term we're using right now. So Yeah, I know that work is ongoing as well. Thanks for bringing that up, Patricia. So the item that we skipped over previously was an update about the kind of debrief about this week's Pierce County Continuum of Care meeting that took place. I know our coalition representative to those meetings is Gerald. I know Lori Davenport also attends. Gerald, we weren't sure if you were able to attend the meeting this week, so that's why I pinned down Lori to speak. Maybe you can add in if there's stuff that you'd like to add in from the meeting at all, Gerald.
Oh no, Lori has it. I did not.
Awesome.
I was just getting back from Alabama, so I did not make it. I trust Lori.
that makes me understand the wardrobe today. That's pretty awesome. All right, Lori, can you give us a quick update on what happened at the COC?
Yeah, I was, this may be a fairly incompetent report because I wasn't taking great notes, but, and Gerald, I hope you had a great vacation. It sounded fantastic. So important things, thank goodness Jeff ran over the 322 million, because that was like kind of the big news. And so I don't have to talk about that and tell you that Jeff knows more than I do. And, but what I remember from the meeting that was really interesting and good, number one, Allie Thompson from THA gave a terrific presentation about emergency housing vouchers and how people are being, navigated through those and qualified. And the big issue is heartbreaking. I mean, it's the same thing that we're just talking about with evictions and people being priced out of stuff. There just isn't enough housing. So people can, they got their voucher, they're all ready to go and they cannot find a place. So that kind of led into the creation of a housing committee. And again, I can't remember, I did not write down the names of all the people that volunteered or were volunteered to be on that committee, but it's a pretty good group. Allie is on that committee, Adam from the health department, I'm on the committee, and that's just beginning to form and have meetings. So, what can we do to increase access to housing, increase housing? So I think that's really important. That was a good thing. We also had update on the comprehensive plan by Garrett, which was great. And the most interesting part of that discussion, I think, was talking about recommendations that were made by the Racial Equity Committee in terms of evaluation of, scoring applications and that kind of thing. So, and Clarissa had some great things to say about that. That was a good discussion. Also identified the need for a subgroup to deal with veteran homelessness, and that's there was some coordination that happened on that during the meeting. A charter review is happening, and I think otherwise I think those were the important points, and if anybody else was there and has anything else to add, great. But it was a good meeting. There was a lot of there was good participation, we had a quorum, a lot of lively discussion. It feels like things are happening.
Thank you, Lori. Yeah, there are a lot of things happening. That's why this week has been such a roller coaster. So appreciate that, and thank you for the update. So let's shift to our breakout conversation. Timothy had to leave, so he's not going to be able to do the review this week. I will drop his review into the chat so that folks can peruse the results of last week's conversation. But I think I want to prioritize the opportunity for folks to network a little bit and talk. I just recognized as I was thinking about what we could talk about during breakout that what do you know, we're halfway through the year and we have the second half of the year ahead of us. And I thought it'd be a good opportunity to spend a few minutes, maybe we'll do 10 minutes, talking about what do you hope that the coalition can accomplish in the second half of 2022. So I'm going to set up rooms with 5 or so folks in every room. And again, the purpose of these conversations is twofold: to have the conversation on the topic we're going over, but then also just to have a chance to network and speak with each other for a few minutes. Encourage everyone to have somebody assigned in the chat room to take notes and then paste those into the chat when we come back to the full room. So I will send us all off and we will come back here at about 10:43. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for, well, hopefully, I know that was a short conversation time, so 10 minutes is not a whole lot, but we want to make sure we carve out some time. So hopefully that was useful. And I see folks are already pasting their what they gathered from the conversation into the chat. If folks can continue to do that, I will forward the information to Timothy so he can put together his summary. Let me see if I can, should have done this before. See if I can drop into the chat. I'm gonna put you on mute, Jay. Your mic is open. There we go. All right, let me throw that into the chat. Sorry, I'm a little scattered here. Well,
Version of scattered, Rob, is different than other persons of scattered.
Yeah, well, you know, if I hadn't been yakking during the conversation time rather than prepping to put this in the chat, then I wouldn't be stumbling around. So let's let me save this real quick. Now
I will take blame for you, Rob. That was my fault, Coalition.
No. All right. So here's the information from last week's chat. And again, of course, this is always, oh boy, that's not even, nobody's gonna be able to open that because it's in the wrong format. So let me save it as a Word document so everybody can see it. All right, so there it is as a Word document. As a reminder, all of these documents that Timothy puts together are also shared on the pchomeless.org site. So you can grab those there. And let's move on to the last few items on our agenda. Let's see what we got here. Briefly, I will mention under our advocacy update, because of the holiday, there are no Tacoma City Council meetings on Tuesday, so study session has been canceled. The council meeting on Tuesday night has been canceled. There, I believe later in the week is a committee meeting, but not related to our work. So the city of Tacoma should be back to information the following week. As always, the Pierce County Council agendas have not yet been posted for next week. Sally, are you aware or have a clue of anything popping up in the next week?
The one thing that I know will be on the July 5th regular council agenda is a proclamation proclaiming Pride Month in Pierce County, and it would be super helpful for those of you who feel comfortable doing so, sending a message to the county council thanking them for that, since there's no ability to fly the Pride flag or do any other items related to Pride Month at the county level. There will be a lot of negative messages being received, so if you are comfortable sending a positive message, that would be really nice.
Yeah, thank you for that, Sally. And there was an effort for folks to submit comments earlier in the week as well. So that's been an ongoing effort. And again, I would second what Sally said about encouraging folks, if they support such a thing, to let the county council know, because the naysayers will be vocal. So that's a quick advocacy update. In terms of the Pierce County Comprehensive Plan to End Homelessness, Maureen, thankfully, I'm sure all of you saw the email that Maureen sent to the list with the materials for this afternoon's meeting of the advisory board for the Pierce County Comprehensive Plan to End Homelessness. That meeting is something that you can attend and listen into if you would like to. It is going to be held on Zoom this afternoon from 1 to 3. And thanks to Garrett for all his work pulling together materials for that. Trying to recall, Garrett, anything that you think would be helpful to share related to that meeting this afternoon?
It's going to focus on really just 3 areas. The first one is election of an executive board. That's going to kind of help drive the agendas for the advisory group and work on communication. Second part is there's going to be a discussion about how we can expand shared housing. That's stuff that Mike Yoder and Mark Merrill will be kind of helping be part of that conversation and their team. And the last part is kind of a start of conversations around behavioral health. And so the Richard Van Cleef, who heads up the behavioral health kind of work at the county, so hired mostly for the 10th of 1%, yay for all the advocates that pushed that through at the county. And we're also going to be joined by James Pogue, who manages Comprehensive Life Resource. Again, those are less presentations. There will be a presentation, but much more a discussion about how we ought to be focusing our energy to make shared housing and behavioral health kind of more integrated into our system. So what should we be doing as a county and a community to make that stuff happen? You know, so how do we direct our efforts and our funding?
Great. Thank you, Garrett. And I just wanted to say, appreciate the focus for today's meeting. So that's fantastic. And as a reminder to the coalition's official representative to the advisory board is Maureen Howard. Since Maureen is still under the weather and recovering from her health issues, I am stepping in as an alternate, so I'll be attending that meeting on behalf of the coalition today. Courtney, you have your hand up?
Yes, thank you. In reviewing the information that Garrett, well, I guess Maureen provided the coalition, in looking at the behavioral health tax information, there are slides, and on one of the slides, a breakdown of the funding. And the Pierce County sheriffs are getting the largest amount, like by a dramatic amount, over $2.5 million. And I'm not sure what they do for housing, for helping the unhoused, but it's disheartening to see the breakdown in the funding, and I would encourage anybody who has words to say about that to make sure they come to this meeting and express themselves.
Thank you, Courtney. Any other comments on the comp plan, Patricia?
I think that's what sort of needs to be developed a little bit, sort of backing Courtney up, is that there needs to be monitoring and accountability of use of funds before the distribution of funds, the funds are gone, right? Somewhere in the middle or like throughout. And it's not just set up for having like an audit, you know, a known audit, but sort of like, what are you doing actively? So a lot of these audits show up to certain providers or show up when everything is already and shining and glistening. But the reality of the situation is, as we all know here, is that that's not the case. So I hope that things can be incorporated with monitoring and accountability in a more robust way, so that you know, services can be done at where the money comes, the intent, and the client outcomes are. So thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for that, Patricia and Courtney, both. there is accountability built into the spending that's being done, and really it's being managed by the folks at Pierce County Human Services. But I think these are all great questions to raise in terms of where dollars are being awarded. And so appreciate those perspectives, especially from those who have lived experience. So looking at the rest of our agenda, I said we would end early, and you know what? We're filling our time, which shocker. But I do want to offer a couple of moments here, Jan, if you had more that you wanted to share from the Safe Sites for All group.
Monday is our usual meeting. It's a holiday. So Rob, is it possible that you could put it, Rob or Garrett, put on the website that we will not be meeting this Monday? Because there is an invitation to join. And meanwhile, you know, the weather is on everybody's mind. I would like folks to think of last weekend as a drill. So last weekend was a good example of how a lower level response happens, which is volunteer based. Government is now saying for the first time that they will step up and support a higher level response. So I want to give kudos to Caleb in the city of Tacoma, Jeff and Garrett with the county. The discussions we're having now were not even happening last year. So I know some folks are frustrated with the snails, apparently at snail's pace of achieving greater response, but we are worlds ahead. So just stay tuned and you know, just come and join us at any level that you can. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Jan. Patricia, did you mean to have your hand up still? And then Jeffrey. And if you're speaking, Patricia, you're on mute. All right, she may not be able to respond right now. Jeffrey, you had your hand up, and then Ed has his hand up as well.
Yes. Garrett sent out some information earlier that I think that we really do need to pay attention to. Number one, roughly 3,200 last summer, people unsheltered in Pierce County. This summer, 4,300. Now, those numbers could be because we're more organized in getting better counts. That's a lot of people. And we're not building our camps fast enough to accommodate. And this is not going to go away because it's going to take 2 to 3 to 4 years to get low-income housing on the market. So, what is our options? Our options is to let people sleep on the streets, or we build a bunch of small encampments for all the campers out there. It's a reality, folks. The low-income housing is not happening quickly, and it's not going to, because that's led by market conditions. So our option, I believe, is to work heavily on getting these small encampments, sanctioned encampments by the city, by the county, so that people have safe places to sleep at night and safe places to be, and they can get their lives back together again. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeffrey. And Ed? And you're muted.
Just an announcement and an observation. Announcement that we will have a homeless memorial on the 10th of July, 5 o'clock at Shiloh Baptist Church. And we have 30 people that died in the last 3 months that we'll be remembering. And secondly, an observation, if we have 4,300 people out on the street and the CDC says they need a gallon of water every day, that's 860 cases of water that we need daily. So I don't think any of our governments can withstand that kind of purchasing. So we need to figure out another way, maybe water spigots from houses and various things, because with that kind of a population, you can't move that much water. So that's daily. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. And Caleb, and then we got to wrap up. And I do know Garrett wanted to make an announcement.
Just clarifying question for Ed, what the location of the memorial again?
Shiloh Baptist Church.
Thank you.
And I'll be sending out an invite.
All right. And Garrett, you have late breaking news about next week's social get together, because it's not going to be at 7 Seas.
That's right. Don't go to the 7 Seas, or you can and you'll be by yourself. So we are going to have our networking social hour. We're going to have a barbecue at my house, and I've updated the website with that, and I'll put it into the chat. So Nyland House Barbecue is bring something to share. I will provide hot dogs and veggie dogs to roast on an open fire. And again, the whole purpose of this is no agenda, just come and chat homelessness or just hang out with folks that care. So I'm North Tacoma, about halfway between Proctor and Old Town, and hope you can make it.
It's a party at Garrett's house.
Oh, and pretty kid friendly. So
okay,
I'm happy to be a kid, love whatever out that they might want to play with.
Fantastic. So we have run out of time, but I do want to offer people, if you want to share some reflections on today's meeting, what went well, what could have gone better, what should we make sure to do next week, please drop that in the chat. And I know we ran long today, but there's a lot of energy and concern around response to hot weather. So I think it was an important conversation, even if we didn't run long. So thank you for being here, everyone. And if you have an interest in doing, yeah, Lavada.
Can you?
Yeah, I can hear you. But I can't hear you now for some reason.
I'll be at the next meeting next Friday, and I'll have a document about the housing.
Okay, and if you have the ability to hang out, we will be meeting here in 5 minutes to plan for next week's meeting. So again, thank you everyone for attending today, and I hope everybody has a safe holiday weekend, and we'll see you all next Friday.